Another cooperator. Today, another member of the pro-Trump right-wing paramilitary group, the Proud Boys, pled guilty for his role in the January 6th attack and also agreed to cooperate with prosecutors. This makes three members of the so-called Proud Boys who've pled guilty. One of those who's cooperating is cooperating in the seditious conspiracy case the Justice Department has brought against the group. There's also a seditious conspiracy case pending against the members of another proto-fascist, pro-Trump paramilitary group called the Oath Keepers. Seditious conspiracy is a specific, rarely charged, very serious crime that the Justice Department has had a heck of a time in previous cases proving it, the very few times it's ever been used in the U.S. criminal law. But one of the things we are learning from the indictments and from the court filings in those sedition cases and in the public hearings by the January 6th investigation is that these paramilitary groups were apparently an important, integral part of the plot to try to overthrow the government, to stop the certification of the last election by using force inside the U.S. Capitol. The January 6th investigators have laid out how hundreds of these Proud Boys marched to the Capitol hours before Trump directed the crowd at his rally that they should go to the Capitol. They started attacking police just as Trump started sending the big mob their way. They were effectively the tip of the spear. They breached the Capitol, and then the mob was there to roll in behind them. The chairman of the January 6th investigation says at upcoming hearings, witnesses will describe conversations between these paramilitary groups that led the breach of the Capitol and people in the orbit of then-President Trump. They're charged with sedition. And then there's him. But, you know, these aren't the only fascist right-wing paramilitary groups that are operating on the bleeding edge of right-wing politics right now. Just this past weekend, for example, there was this.
These guys stopped a U-Haul full of dudes.
A swarm of extremists who Idaho police say came to riot. 31 suspected white nationalists zip-tied and arrested blocks from a pride festival.
There was at least one smoke grenade. There was multiple shields.
Coeur d'Alene police Saturday discovered the crowd crammed in a U-Haul after a 911 caller described seeing a little army at a local hotel with masks on their faces and slogans like Reclaim America on their shirts. Police charging all 31 with conspiracy to riot, noting they planned to swarm several parts of Coeur d'Alene and carried paperwork similar to an operations plan that a police or military group would put together. They traveled in from states all across the country, allegedly united by white nationalism.
They appeared to be affiliated with the group Patriot Front.
They call themselves Patriot Front. They have ridiculous little uniforms. You might recognize them by their distinctive matching khakis, which is supposed to be menacing instead of making it look like they all just got off work together at Best Buy. But this was them in D.C. last year, trying to intimidate with their little homemade shields and their JV soccer shin guards. This group is a renamed version of one of the white nationalist groups that took part in the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in 2017. The group renamed itself after one of its members killed Heather Heyer, a counter-protester, and seriously injured a ton of other people when he deliberately drove his speeding car into a crowd of anti-racist protesters. But them targeting the Pride event in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho this weekend, one of the most unnerving things about the reporting on this was that Patriot Front was apparently not even the only armed far-right group that was targeting that particular Pride event in that particular part of Idaho this weekend. Another so-called Patriot group had planned a show-off-your-gun event to coincide with and menace that same Pride gathering in Coeur d'Alene. The same weekend, a different group of Proud Boys stormed into a library in the San Francisco Bay Area and disrupted a children's story session, shouting anti-gay and anti-trans threats because the story time was led by a drag queen, and so they were there to break it up by force. You will notice that the targets of these various fascist pro-Trump paramilitary groups like Patriot Front, Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, you'll notice that their targets are the political targets of our current Republican Party, right? The paramilitary groups are providing physical attacks, physical intimidation to reinforce political attacks. You know, Democrats and deep state actors are trying to steal the election. Well, these will be the groups that'll be the tip of the spear that violently storm into the Capitol to stop that. You know, gay folks and trans folks are going after our children, right? Well, these groups will storm pride festivals and supposedly objectionable children's story groups and menace people with weapons and with threats. They'll put physical force behind the political threats from the Republican Party. There are historical and sociological reasons behind the existence of fascist paramilitary organizations in the United States. This is not our first rodeo with these clowns. But it is a different thing altogether when paramilitary groups like this start playing a political function adjunct to one of the two major parties in our country. That is a very, very bad sign.